The training yard was empty when Christy arrived that evening. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving only the dying embers of twilight to paint the sky in shades of bruised purple and sickly orange. He shouldn't have come. Not at this hour. Not after what happened last week. But the message had been clear. Scrawled in handwriting he knew too well, slipped under his door that morning. Training yard, sunset, come alone. It was signed with a single initial, R. Christy's boots crunched against the gravel as he walked toward the center of the yard. The wooden railing where he used to lean, where they used to talk. It looked different now. Rotted, weathered. How long had it been since anyone actually trained here? The armor rack stood empty. The weapons had been removed months ago. All except one. The two-handed sword still leaned against the far wall, exactly where it had always been. Romario's sword. The blade caught the last rays of sunlight, and for a moment, Christy could swear he saw something move in its reflection. "You came," a voice said from behind him. Christy spun around. Romario sat cross-legged on the ground, just like he always had. The dagger spun between his fingers in that same hypnotic pattern. Spin, catch, spin, catch. But something was wrong. The movements were too smooth, too perfect. And Romario's eyes, they were black, completely black. "Romario," Christy breathed, taking a step back. "What happened to you?" The figure that wore Romario's face smiled. It was the same teasing smirk Christy had seen 1,000 times before. But now it seemed too wide, too knowing. "What do you mean?" Romario asked, his voice carrying that familiar, dangerous edge. "I'm right here, just like always." Christy's hand moved instinctively to his hip, but his sword wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. He hadn't carried it in weeks, not since the funeral. "You're not real," Christy whispered. "You're dead. I watched them bury you." Romario tilted his head, and something in his neck made a soft, clicking sound. "Am I, though?" He stood slowly, unnaturally, as if his joints didn't quite bend the right way anymore. "You always said I was complicated, Christy. Messy. Maybe death is just another layer." The temperature in the yard dropped suddenly. Christy could see his breath now, misting in the air. The shadows around them seemed to grow longer, deeper, reaching toward him like grasping fingers. "I don't understand," Christy said, his voice cracking. "Why are you here? What do you want?" Romario took a step closer, then another. The dagger had stopped spinning. It hung in his hand now, blade pointing down, edge catching the dying light. "You remember what you said to me?" Romario asked softly. "That last day, right here in this yard?" Christy's throat tightened. He remembered. God, he remembered. "I can lift it. I can lift your two-hander." Such a stupid, meaningless boast. But Romario had laughed. He'd made that joke about the poison and the antidote, and they'd stood there together. And for one perfect moment, everything had been okay between them. That was 3 hours before the accident. before the training dummy had fallen, before Christy realized he'd failed to check the safety rope, before Romario's neck had... "Stop," Christy choked out, pressing his palms against his eyes. "Please, stop. You give both the poison and the antidote," Romario said, and now he was close enough that Christy could feel his presence. Cold, so cold. "That's what I said to you. Remember?" Christy nodded, tears streaming down his face. "But you only gave me poison, Christy," Romario whispered. "Where was my antidote?" "It was an accident," Christy sobbed. "I didn't mean to. I checked the rope. I swear I checked it." "Did you?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Christy's mind raced back to that day. Had he checked? He'd been so distracted, so angry about their argument the night before. Had he really looked at the safety equipment? Or had he just... "No," he breathed. "Oh God, no." Romario's hand, icy and wrong, touched Christy's shoulder. "You wanted to lift my sword," he said softly, "to prove you were strong enough, to prove you were worth keeping around." His grip tightened, fingers digging in like claws. "So lift it now, Christy. Lift it and show me." Christy opened his eyes. The massive two-handed sword had moved. It now stood directly in front of him, blade pointing upward, handle within reach. He hadn't heard it move, hadn't seen it happen. "I can't," Christy whispered. "You said you could," Romario insisted, his voice taking on an edge of something darker, something that sounded like metal scraping against metal. "You promised. You always promise things, don't you, Christy? And then you fail to deliver." The shadows were moving now, twisting, forming shapes. Christy could see them at the edges of his vision. Other figures, other faces he recognized, other people he'd let down, other mistakes he'd made. "Lift the sword," Romario commanded, his voice no longer entirely human. "Prove that you're strong enough to carry the weight of what you've done." Christy's hand trembled as he reached for the handle. The metal was freezing. The moment his fingers closed around it, pain shot through his arm. Not physical pain, something worse. Memories flooded his mind. Every time he'd been careless, every time he'd cut corners, every time he'd let his pride override his caution. Every single time. The sword was impossibly heavy. Christy pulled with all his strength, but it wouldn't budge. His muscles screamed, his vision blurred. He could hear Romario laughing now, that low, dangerous sound he'd always made. But it was wrong, distorted, like it was coming from somewhere deep underground. "You can't lift it," Romario said, and now there were dozens of voices speaking in unison. All the people Christy had failed, all the lives he'd damaged through his negligence. "Because you're not strong enough to carry your guilt." Christy fell to his knees, still gripping the sword. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "Romario, I'm so sorry. I would take it back if I could. I would give anything." "Would you?" Romario knelt beside him. His face was inches away now. Christy could see the wound on his neck, could see the unnatural angle. "Would Would you really give anything, Christy? Yes, Christy sobbed. Yes, anything. Romario smiled. It was almost tender, almost the smile Christy remembered from better days. Then stay, Romario whispered. Stay here with me, in this yard, in this moment, forever. The shadows surged forward. Christy tried to scream, but no sound came out. The cold wrapped around him like chains. The last thing he saw was Romario's black eyes, reflecting something that might have been pity or hunger. The next morning, the groundskeeper found the training yard exactly as it had been for months. Empty, abandoned. The wooden railing rotted and unused. But there was something new. Two figures now stood frozen in the center of the yard. Statues, someone might think. Incredibly lifelike statues of two young warriors. One kneeling, one standing over him, both reaching for the same massive sword that leaned against the wall. The groundskeeper shuddered and hurried away. He didn't notice the tear frozen on the kneeling figure's cheek. He didn't see the way the standing figure's head tilted ever so slightly as he passed. And he definitely didn't hear the whisper that echoed through the empty yard long after he'd gone. You give both the poison and the antidote, but which one will you choose next time? The sword against the wall gleamed in the morning light, waiting, always waiting, for the next person foolish enough to think they could lift the weight of their sins.